Welcome back to a new YouTube video. In today's video I have one of the first game played in the FIDE Grand Prix Leg 3. In this game I have the game between Levon Aronian and Hikaru Nakamura. Both very strong players, and Hikaru Nakamura was the player who won the first leg of the FIDE Grand Prix. So we'll have a very exciting game. Levon Aronian begins the game with d4, controlling the center right away. Hikaru responds with d5, very common move, and we'll have a Queen's Gambit opening. And in this time, Black decides to go for Queen's Gambit accepted, which is a very solid way to play. So White immediately goes for the center with e4, and Black goes for the queen side development, which is when you push pawns on that side. So White start to attack the queen side as well, telling Black that White can play in both sides at the same time. So we'll have a pair of trades, and knight goes to c3. It seems that the pawn on b5 can go forward to attack the knight, but it is simply an illusion, because this knight can go to b5 and preparing a fork, or it seems that with a6 this knight will be trapped, but this rook is hanging. So queen goes to b6. It seems like a mistake, because is in general a bad idea to develop the knight in the beginning of the game. So knight goes to d5 to punish this bad move for Black. So queen retreats to b7, and we have a great game, a great move, which is bishop f4, preparing a threat on c7. Now this knight can jump and creating a fork between the king and the rook. It seems that Black could hold the position with knight a6, but it also another illusion, because the rook will sacrifice itself, and now this knight is going to fork the queen and the rook and the king. So now the fork is unstoppable, practically unstoppable. So push the pawn, a great move, although I personally don't understand this move. Could be to preparing the development of the Black bishop or another ideas. So bishop take the pawn, and now Black develops a knight. It could be to develop another piece, which is now this bishop has to move again. So he does, and now develop the both knights with only maneuvers of the pawns and the bishop. So knight goes to c7 to reclaim the rook. So king move, and now White is up a full rook. Queen goes to create a check, which has to be covered with the knight or the bishop, and queen take the knight. So we have the queen develop itself, but it seemed like a mistake. It could be because now the the more important aspect for white is to preparing the castle in the next move. So now we'll have a pin. This white knight cannot move because this bishop is going to take the queen and winning in the spot. So that doesn't scare Levon Aronian and develop his bishop and preparing the castle in the next move. So rook goes to e8, preparing a laser beam towards the king. But a very calm move, which is retreat the bishop to g3. It seems that white is not scared of nothing. So knight goes to f6, centering itself. Castle. It's in an inaccuracy for white, but for me it is a very simple move and very human. Now the white king is safe, completely safe, and can starting an attack in the next move. So knight goes to e4. This is a very strong attack. Now black is preparing to go for winning material. In this case is a pawn, because this knight is being attacked by 3 pieces at the same time. So queen has to move, and we have a blunder. It seems very reasonable move, but it wastes an opportunity to win material right away. But also it seems a very reasonable move, because once that the knight moves, the queen has to move again, and this particular knight is targeting important pieces of the board, which is the knight and the bishop. So bishop goes h4 and cover the shed with the pawn. And how we can see, we have the winning material, which in this scenario is not possible, because now the white bishop is hanging. So black decided goes for an attack to the bishop, and how we can see, white sacked his bishop, but attacking the knight. It's in a very strong move in a point of view of a human, because now the black knight is have a lot of pressure. So now we have another blunder. This is wasting the chance again to gain material. So this game has a brilliant move, which is queen a2, threaten important square. Now this pawn, which when you are up in material, is an important aspect to try to trade the major quantity of pieces. And when the remaining pieces are on the board, the more stronger they become. So black decided to give up the pawn, and white takes. And now this rook is very strong because it's in the 7th file. So rook goes to e6, activating itself. Now it's important not to trade rooks, because it's the more important piece for black. If the remaining rook disappear for black, now white is completely winning. So we have a pair of trades, And here we have a simple trap, which is if the rook takes the rook, knight is going to create a fork between the king and this pawn. So bishop goes to protect the pawn, the remaining pawns, and we have a push of pawn. This for me is a very brilliant move. Now if and he does, white take the pawn on b4, but now black has a very strong passed pawn, which is protected in the squares. So we have a pair of trades, and king goes to h1, which I think it seems for me an accuracy, because now this king can have problems in a future. So black pushed the pawn, and now it seems unstoppable. This pawn is going to become a queen. So therefore bishop goes to e3 to try to stop or at least sacrifice itself for the queen. And black shoots to a rook, because at this point doesn't matter if it's a rook or a queen. In any scenario the bishop is going to take it. So we have pair of trades, and now if we count material, white has 5 pawns and a rook, and black has 2 and a knight and a bishop and 3 pawns. So now it seems very hard for black to hold in this position. So king goes to b8 to try to stop the advance of the b pawn. So now the pieces centering itself. Here is another trap. Now the bishop can, if white allows this bishop to place on this square, now this rook is not going to be active any longer. So rook goes to f6, a very strong move, attacking a pawn at the same time. Here I don't understand why this rook doesn't take this pawn, but is attacking another pawn. It seems reasonable for me. So bishop goes to a6, trying to be more active in the position. Oh, the reason was that this was connected pawns, and in a future it will be more important this pawn than this one. And now king center, both king centers, and now this rook has another target. So we have a very strong move. Now it seems that this rook can take this pawn, but it's an illusion, because this knight is going to h3, creating a fork in the king and this rook. But obviously this grandmaster is not going to fall in these little traps. So push the pawn, and now the pawn is pinned. This pawn cannot take another pawn because the knight is going to fall. So white take rook move, and now white has another pawn, and black knight goes for take a pawn. Now it seems that the battle of the pawns, white is winning that battle. And now we have a one pawn, and it seems equals. They only are trading pawns, but now these pawns for white are very important. and how we can see, the bishop goes to attack the rook, but the rook only has to move, and here is preparing a trap to trap the rook. Now the king center itself, attacking the king, and here we have an accuracy, because now the bishop was protecting the remaining pawn for black. So now this will be a very easily target for white. So therefore, white is going to take the pawn, and knight. So the king is going forward to take the pawn, and now knight goes to e4. It seems now the pawn on h7 is going to fall, but it isn't, because now this knight is going to take the pawn on g5. So rook goes to b4, and now we have a very strong move, rook b4, and bishop goes to protect any piece, and the killer move. Now white hasn't any piece, only pawns, but their pawns are enough to hold this position or even win. So now is completely winning for white. The bishop can sacrifice itself for at least 2 pawns, but 3 pawns are too much. So kings take the remaining pawn, and both kings center itself, and now we have now black resigns, and Levon Aronian wins this important game, one of the first game of the first day of the FIDE Grand Prix against Hikaru Nakamura, very strong chess players. And I hope you have enjoyed this game, and it's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to me, and see you the next video. Bye.